How's it going, everybody? The Mythical Pickle here, and welcome back to another Fallout 4 video. Today we will be trying to see if you can beat Fallout 4 with only a 2x4. Now, without any further delay, let's lay down some ground rules for the challenge run this time around. To start off, we have some standard rules that are likely to be seen in future challenge runs, that is, no companions of any kind, aside from quest mandatory ones, of course. As far as the difficulty goes, I decided I won't be doing very hard on every run, as aside from making select enemies bullet sponges, very hard doesn't offer much in terms of actual gameplay. So this run, and unless specified otherwise, all future runs will be completed on normal difficulty. Weapon Bash is also allowed if absolutely necessary, but to prevent any kind of reliance on it, the Basher perk is still off the table. I must stay in character with all dialogue choices and fraction decisions, although that doesn't really apply in this particular challenge run, as you'll see later. And last but certainly not least, I must beat the main quest. Now for our more unique rules. As the title suggests, I will only be allowed to use the board to take out enemies. With that being said, there's no armor restrictions this time around, though, spoiler alert, I never used power armor throughout this playthrough as I felt it would take away from the challenge far too much. And, just like my last challenge run, we will be running a few mods to help the game function a little bit smoother, as well as match the theme we've set. Made it a point to only pick mods that will in no way make me overpowered or render the challenge useless, but rather make the challenge feel a little more fresh and engaging. Now with all that said, let's dive right into it. Now, first things first, I gotta make sure I create a character that truly embodies the true chaos one must possess in their heart to run around the Commonwealth armed with only a fraction of the Home Depot lumber section. Ah yes, living embodiment of a true board slinger. Baldy. Welcome to the Commonwealth, buddy. Next, we've got to get my special stats properly spread so I can get the most out of the board as soon as possible. So, that's a 10 on strength, of course, to get that extra damage boost, as the board is a melee weapon after all. 8 on endurance for a bit of health and extra stamina. 2 on charisma, that's right, Baldy's gonna be quite the charmer. And 5 on luck because I'm an absolute madman. Now all suited and booted, Baldy is finally released into the wilderness of the Commonwealth. And oh boy, it's got no idea what's in store for it. Armed with absolutely nothing, I wasted no time hightailing it to Diamond City. Well, technically the southeast wall of Diamond City. As most players know, when first arriving here, Diamond City guards will be having an all-out war with the few green giants. And what do green giants typically wield? That's right, Jimmy. They wield boards. Now, of course, I attempted to sneak up on the super mutants, as I have absolutely no way of attacking. Alrighty then, let's try that one again. Like I was saying, I have absolutely no way of attacking these guys right now, so it's in my best interest to sneak around and loot their corpses as it becomes safer. But then I remembered, ain't nobody got time for that. And thankfully, eventually I got lucky enough for one to drop the board. Now it's officially time to get this challenge underway. After selling just about everything I had to the local chem dealer outside of Diamond City, who was definitely not higher than a kite during our little barter. Probably. Next we talked to Piper, where we get our first board cameo. But sadly that was short-lived, as I busted past her and Robomayor to head straight in to Diamond City. Once inside, like every Fallout 4 player knows, it was time to get every available resource in Diamond City to break my character and practically beat the game. Well, kind of. I was able to upgrade the board already, but being that the only options were mediocre at best, I decided to wait until I unlocked the blacksmith perk to get that sweet extra 6 damage from the ultimate board upgrade. Now that Diamond City didn't have much else to offer, it was high time we talked to Ellie. After she asked me to find Synthetic Dickie, I completely ignored her and retraced my steps to the Museum of Freedom, where I proceeded to handle some raiders. Well, you know the rest. After shooting the breeze with the man, the myth, the Preston, I made my way back outside and dipped out the back. 'Cause, I don't know about you guys, but fighting a Deathclaw with nothing but a splintery stick isn't high on my to-do list. With that said, I headed straight back to Diamond City, where the new blacksmith perk Preston so graciously bestowed upon me was waiting to be put to the test. Ah yes, a doohickey thingamajig attached to a board. Honestly, couldn't imagine a better weapon design. Thank you, Todd Howard. Jokes aside, my newfound strength gave me a hollow courage I needed to save the one and only Nick Valentine from Vault 81. Now I'll spare you the details, as it really didn't go any different than my last run. Like I said, not much different at all. Anyway, with the detective saved and some snooping around through Kellogg's belongings, I began my treacherous journey to Fort Hagen, during which I made a few friends with the local fauna, and abruptly stumbled into a family reunion. Thankfully, they were too stunned to speak, or move for that matter. I honestly felt kinda bad for them as I bonked each and every one of them on the head with my board of mass destruction. Though those feelings were short-lived, as I had finally made it to Fort Hagen. Now I'm not gonna lie, I was only level 4 or so I was not entirely sure how this was gonna go. But then I remembered Baldy's mantra. Board equals win.
Take you up in paradise. If you tell me I'm the only one that you love, life could be a dream, sweetheart. Hello, hello again. Shaboom, shaboom, meet again. Oh, life could be a dream.
Having absolutely annihilated the rest of his minions, I hardly gave Kellogg a chance to think before whacking his frontal lobe into next week. Now that I had Kellogg's brain, I headed back to Nick to tell him all about the jovial news. He was not as impressed as I would have thought, and for some reason, despite never talking to Piper, she acted as if we were best friends already. A little bit odd, I guess, but I tried not to read too much into it, mostly because I couldn't care less. Anyways, as usual, after discussing my strong-arming methods, Valentine invited Mr. Baldy to Good Neighbor, home of the scumbag. Baldy, of course, makes a grand entrance by sending Finn flying through a window. And unsurprisingly, the mayor is quite impressed. But aside from the debauchery of Good Neighbor, it was time to convince Dr. Amari to let me brain surf. And a grueling 20 minutes of staring at a TV screen later, I had the information I needed and made haste to an old friend in the glowing waste. And just as before, I attempted to run from anything that so much as looked in my general direction. But as you might have expected, it didn't take long for Baldy to be jumped by 2 rad scorpions. They made their best attempts at taking me out, but I seen a clear chance to run, and I took it. Sprinting as fast as my AP would allow, I seemingly lost the interest of Bonnie and Clyde. Thankfully, shortly after this, I had finally found my way into the Children of Atom's crater, where I attempted to discuss the whereabouts of a large green boy. That was until I was so rudely cut off by the onslaught of rad scorpions that stormed the village. Now, I'm not entirely sure how the hell this happened, but I must have pissed off those scorpions from before, so they enlisted their entire family tree to hunt me down. But thankfully, they took out most of their anger on the not-so-innocent children of Adam. Granted, I was forced to take down the last few, but they really didn't put up much of a fight. Once the dust had settled, I found that not a living soul but yours truly was left on the battlefield. 'Twas a dark day indeed. Though it is worth mentioning that the leader of this cult of nutcases had a note that led me straight to the Green Bean Man himself. So once again, I was back on the metaphorical road. And I guess the game felt that 30 plus rad scorpion notches on my board was plenty enough, as I had no other issues finding Virgil's hideout. After shooting the breeze with a man that is entirely too calm about me finding his home in literally the middle of nowhere, he gave me directions to the mass fusion building, where I was finally able to show the gunners what Baldy was all about. Upon entering the courser's lair, I left my words at the door as I whacked the shit out of him with my 2x4. Surprisingly, he fell without much effort, and that meant it was time to decrypt the courser chip. Now at this point, I felt it was necessary to start picking a side from which I would beat the game. So naturally, I followed the Freedom Trail, did a little song and dance to open their very well hidden base of operations, and talked business with the railroad. Once I agreed to help them, I got Tinker Tom to decrypt the courser chip, after which I double-crossed them and went to the Minutemen, or at least the remnants thereof. It wasn't difficult to take down the Deathclaw, keeping them in the museum at this point, which meant it was finally time to build the teleporter and infiltrate the Mythical Institute. Once inside, I discussed the critical economic climate in today's society with my robo-son, while I waited for the arrival of my more wrinkly one. Now, after telling Father I didn't feel like committing genocide in the name of science, things got heated. Long story short, I am no longer allowed into Chuck E. Cheese. That's a different story. Baldy was officially banished from the Institute, which meant it was time for revenge. But before Baldy could exact his revenge, he needed an army, perhaps one that he could even call on at a minute's notice. Yep, you guessed it. It was time to fulfill the Wetworks requirements of the Minutemen at the beck and call of Preston Garvey. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to hell. After a few mildly tedious Preston specials, it was time to take back the castle. With defenses set and my 2x4 at the ready, we stormed in. Now, I had assumed that considering how well leveled Baldy was at this point, this would have been no issue. But, man was I wrong. The Mirelurk's shells proved quite annoying as they blocked nearly all melee damage, so I had to be very precise with my hits. But the true problems arose with the Mirelurk Queen. Let me tell you, she was not very happy to see me in my board. Yet, with a few well-placed bonks on the knee and a whole lot of stim packs, we emerged victorious. Now that the Minutemen had a new base of operations, it was time to continue forming our ranks. Oh dear God.
Sweetheart, hello, hello, meet again, oh, could be a dream. If only all my
By the
precious
way,
plans would come
we've
true.
decided to support the
If you would let me spend
We've
my
got to
whole
help
life
each other.
loving you,
We want things to
life
get
could
better.
be a dream, sweetheart. Now every time I look at you, something is on my mind. If you do what I want you to,
We've decided to support the
we'd be
Minutemen.
so far.
Luckily, this tedium was broken by the cries of an old woman demanding my presence at the castle. Ah yes, it was finally time to talk guns with Army Granny. Most of you know how this quest goes down. I absolutely obliterated Sarge with my infamous Board of Destruction, only to be nearly ended by his nuclear self-destruction. Oh Now I attempted to run through the normal route, only to find Granny hadn't been following me the entire time. Retracing my steps, I come to find Army Granny shifting between realities in the adjacent room.
I'll back you up, General.
After I somehow managed to pull her back into our reality, I finished up the quest with no trouble at all, ending it how every quest should be ended, with a huge explosion. When I returned to Preston to tell him about our odd new arrival, he told me about another settlement that needed our help and proceeded to mark it on my map. I'm just kidding. You really thought I was going to make you sit through another montage, didn't you?
Life could be a dream, sweetheart.
No. Thankfully, speaking to Army Granny was just enough to spark the interest of the Institute. So much so that they felt the need to launch a full-blown assault on the castle. Now, I may have had some trouble dealing with a 20-foot tall crab before, but at this point, Baldy was a force to be reckoned with. After I so swiftly thwarted the Institute's plans of destruction, me and Preston agreed it was time to take a stand. We had no choice but to destroy the Institute. Phase 1 was in action. I talked to Sturgis about how we were to get into the Institute a second time undetected, to which he directed me to the Commonwealth sewers. Thanks for that. After swimming through 200-year-old toxic sludge, I emerged from the sewers into the Institute. You'd think that with as much technology as they have in this place, they would have thought of a better way to secure their water pipes, but I digress. Now that I was back inside, it was time for Phase 2. With every available Minuteman at the ready, we charged head-on into the greatest battle in the history of Fallout. Or, I just whacked a few cents with my board and stuff. After a heavy-fought battle, I made my way up to see Father, whom was not exactly happy to see me, but using my 2 brain cells that were solely dedicated to charisma, I somehow was able to persuade him to give me the evacuation codes from the terminal beside him. Not that I necessarily cared if these diabolical supervillains made it out or not, but I'd rather not upset our boy Preston if I can help it. After sounding the alarm, it was time for Phase 3. That's right, it was time to blow this joint sky high. After fighting through more waves of manic security synths, I managed to find my way into the reactor room. It was here that I discharged the reactor core and attached the nuclear detonator. Luckily, the Minutemen waiting on the outside managed to pull me out of there before I became a walking tumor. And after many trials and tribulations, there was only one thing left to do.
Just hit that button.
What a sight to behold. And after I turned to briefly talk to Preston, the nuclear option quest was complete, proving that yes, you can indeed beat Fallout 4 with only a 2x4. As always, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Also, if you guys have any ideas on challenge runs I should do in the future, drop a comment down below. Now, I did briefly want to talk to you guys for a bit. I do apologize for the abrupt long break between videos recently. There's been a lot of things happening behind the scenes that really hindered my ability to upload, but believe it or not, it's completely unrelated to Starfield. In fact, I have yet to even touch the game, but I do hope to do so in the future, so let me know if y'all be interested in seeing that. On a real note, I am truly grateful for all the love and support on my previous videos over these last few weeks. It truly means the world to me and really inspires me to keep making videos for you all. That being said, I do hope to upload a bit more regularly in the future, and I've got some big plans for future videos, so stick around for that. But yeah, that's all. I just want to give a little update for you guys. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and as always, remember to smile.